Hi everybody, welcome to my channel, Life, Law, Bin. Now, another thing that some people don't even know, you have to have some kind of idea about when entering pupillage is realistic expectations on what your life will be as a pupil barrister.
Yeah,
So this is where we're gonna go now. So can you describe for us the nature of your work and your workload?
yeah, absolutely. So, big caveat in that it varies from chamber to chambers, and it varies in terms of practice areas, and it even varies in terms of supervisors. What I do compared to my co-pupil is very different day in, day out. So, but I can give you a general idea. Um, Most of the time, I'll be in court because I'm doing crime. I spend most days actually in court observing, taking a note. That's a big thing. Taking literally a verbatim note of the evidence for my supervisor to then go through and pick out points for cross-examination, pick out points for closing speeches, things like that. I do a lot of research for my supervisor, uh, and in terms of cases that we are doing together at the time being, they might say to you, could you just have a look at this? What sentencing case law is there on this point? How can I ask for confiscation of this? Or that it might be a more general kind of bit of research or drafting. That's another thing, drafting. So they might say, I want to know, can I offer no evidence in these circumstances, something like that. And you'll have to go away and produce a big old research note, or it might be like, what should I charge this person with, or what's the realisticness of this defense? You'll have a big research note or a big advice to effectively your supervisor, or to even to the client or to the professional client, and your supervisor will check it through, edit it a bit, and send it on, as if it's their work, but it's something that you kind of worked on together. And that's something that is a norm in terms of pupillage. That kind of like taking a note of proceedings, having a conversation with your supervisor about the types of things that are cracking up in court, what your thoughts are, what you would do, um, and drafting research notes and advices, and maybe even like indictments if you are in crime, or charge sheets, or notes for conferences, and things like that. And it can vary from, I've done a 30-page advice in a judicial review thing. Is this judicially reviewable? I've done a 30-page advice, and I've done a 2-paragraph email advice on various things. So that's the kind of work you do in your first 6. In your second 6, you're on your feet. So that means you will be doing the baby type of work in your practice area. So for us in crime, we'll be doing anything in the Magistrates Court, anything from first appearance all the way to sentence, committals, etc. And we'll be doing some sort of like mentions and smaller stuff, maybe a sentence or two, or a bail application in the Crown Court as well. And if you have a case and it gets taken up to the Court of Appeal, you might even end up in the Court of Appeal, if it's your case. So that's a rough sort of trot through the type of work that you'll be doing as a pupil. There's a lot of it. It comes at all angles and all hours, and you'll have to find various methods of dealing with it and working with it and being on sort of having several cases at your fingertips at a time. It's very different to undergrad, where you can focus on one thing at a time. You might have 5 different things to do in one day. You also will have some form of training in that, whether that's through the inns or your chambers or both. So we have weekly advocacy classes every Wednesday, and we also have inn training, which is every few weeks. We'll have an evening session or a weekend session in the inn, which is advocacy training as well. And that's effectively my workload. A lot of the time, with all of that kind of more formally type of stuff aside, a lot of the time it's just listen to the evidence, reading the evidence through, thinking about it, doing a bit of research in terms of the law, and having a chat with your supervisor about what you think the answer is, what you think you would do, and being proactive.
That no, it's interesting because I actually was about to ask you how do you transition from that first six to the second six, because it's almost like you wake up one day and then you recognize, oops, I'm on my feet now, and
Yeah.
I'm entirely technically responsible for
Mm,
a particular client. So I think it's quite comforting to know that you do at least have classes and training. So I'm assuming it helps the adjustment. It makes it a
yeah.
little bit of a smoother transition.
Yeah, I mean, I'm coming to the end of my first six now, so I can't speak too much about that. And I'm still, it's a bit. You realize it's a big jump. Don't get me wrong, and you think about it, and it seems, um, it gets less and less daunting the closer you get to it, I think, but also more and more daunting in different ways. In that you think, very soon I'm going to actually be doing that, but you've got to back yourself. Is one thing. You got to think. I've been through all this training, been through all this study. I've been picked to do this, so I must have the skill set. And yeah, back yourself a bit and do the work, do the grunt work, do the leg work, and honestly, I think you'll be solid. You just and know a big thing is knowing when you don't know the answer as a second six pupil. You don't have to come to the answer for everything. That's never going to happen. We're not lawyers and barristers aren't walking encyclopedias. Um, you want to be able to go to someone in chambers and say, listen, this come up. I don't know what the answer to this is. Have you ever seen this before? And that happens from the top down and the bottom up in my chambers. People, even on the advices that I was talking about writing, I've done several for Queen's Counsel in chambers where they've said, I don't know the answer to this. Do you reckon you can have a look? Like and then you point them in the right direction. They carry it all the way forward through into the case. Um, uh, and yeah, and from the bottom up, you can't be expected to know everything that's going on. So know when you don't know. The worst, I was always taught the most dangerous thing is someone that knows a little, or the most dangerous person is someone that knows a little about something. Because I don't know, I suppose you think that you must have the answer or else. But yeah, I can't recommend asking enough. Set up a co-pupil group with people in your chambers and with pupils more widely. I'm in a crime pupils group and I've got a group with my co-pupil, and I do not hesitate to ask them, have you seen this before? Heard of anything? Know any authorities in the area? Yeah, definitely.
Super helpful. Now, people always ask, what does a working week look like? But all the time, I think people can't ever say there is a typical working week.
No.
But would you say that in crime, because I noticed you said you've moved from writing an advice letter of 30 pages to
Mm.
something like two paragraphs, depending on the issue, it changes. Would you say then that you have to be quite flexible?
Yeah, definitely. It's you're not expected to work every single evening, every single weekend, every single waking hour of your life. You have to have a life. My supervisor are fantastic in that they are super keen on me having a life, and they constantly say to me, "You must tell us if you can't do this. You must tell us if you've got other stuff on, personal or professional." And so have that relationship with them where you can say like, I've got this on. One of my supervisors, who I won't name, has said, he's never missed a an evening at the theatre. And I think it's important to have that balance between work and life, and it keeps you sharp. Doing something in out of work keeps you sharp in work. So yeah, my average week, to sort of like put it down, because I realize no one wants the answer. Well, it varies. I'll get up, and I'll be at court for about 9. I'll chat with my supervisor for an hour. I might do a bit of research, might do a bit of perfecting of a note or something like that. I'll read the papers ahead before we go into court. I'll sit in court until lunch. We'll go have some food in the dinner break, lunch break, and we'll go back into court, come out, probably leave court 4, 4:30. Ordinarily I'd go back to chambers, but I don't. We're not doing that right now because of COVID. So I'll go home, or I'll carry on working at court for another hour or two. And I usually finish work somewhere between 6 and 7. Some days I'll work as late as 9, 10. I've had a few days where I've really sort of had to work solidly up until gone midnight, where something's been like pressing, or I've had a few things on that have all sort of piled up. And yeah, and you'll do that throughout the working week, and then you'll probably have something-ish to do or just sort out on the weekend. It could be bigger, could be smaller. And when you get into second six, you spend a lot of Sunday evenings prepping for court on Monday. And that's your kind of average working week. And what you do in the evenings and weekends varies depending on what kind of stuff you got cracking on.
In a way, it sounds similar to the bar course in that I'd say being on the course right now, it is quite intense.
Mhm.
But
It is. It
at
is.
the same time, and I don't even I don't even want to downplay how intense it is. It is very intense. But at the same time, you find that you have to work later hours or put in more hours sometimes when you have competing deadlines. So something as simple as two or three things due for the
Yeah.
same date. So it does sound similar, and I'm glad you spoke about finding the balance, because I think I always think all work and no play really, really does make you a dull person. You
Mhm.
get tired, and I think it also makes you lose focus too on your work. So I think it's great that your supervisor is finding time to go to the theater. I think it's important that we find time to do the things that we love so that we can come back and do our best. In and that's all a client really expects, your best. So I think we need to really preserve our mental health and our sanity.
Mhm.
I think that's super important. Now,
Definitely.
people talk about the process. Well, people talk about the relationship between a barrister and a solicitor. How have
Mhm.
you found that so far? Because we always get the impression as well that you do need to have a solid relationship or build up a good relationship with solicitors. What do you think that process is going to be like going forward for yourself?
Yeah, it is hard because you don't meet as many solicitors as you used to. In that they used to, so much, so far as I hear, come to court and sit through cases and stuff, and that just doesn't happen anymore. Really, they'll instruct you remotely, not just because of COVID, but just generally. They'll instruct you remotely over an email or something, and you speak to them a little bit on the phone if you need to, but so there are several events that will happen, not right now, but um, so that you can meet solicitors and so that you can network and things like that, and you can get to know the kind of people that are briefing you, and they can get to know you, and that's kind of key so far as I'm told. The you have to um, remember, I suppose, at the end of the day, that you're an independent um, barrister if you apply to the independent bar, that is, and that you are your own business, um, and you have to kind of make sure that you put the best version of yourself forward again. So we're talking about that again, but you are professional in how you interact with solicitors, and that they want to brief you. And the best way to do that, I suppose, is to do good work, to represent your clients well, to make sure that your clients like you, and that they think that you are doing a good job for them, and that you are doing a good job for them. Uh, and I think that's the kind of best thing you can do to build up relationships with the solicitors, because the solicitors will speak to the client. way more than you do, way more than you speak to the solicitor. So it's this weird three-way relationship where um, they tell their client something, the client comes and tells you, you advise the client, and then they go back and say to the client whether they liked you or not, whether they agree with you or not, whether they think you did a good job or not. And the solicitor almost sort of their best guess at how good you are is based on what the client tells them. So it all comes down to the service that you're delivering at the end of the day, uh, and that's what I think that's the best thing to focus on, rather than these networking events happen and things like that, and go to them if you feel comfortable, and if that's if you feel like that's somewhere that you want to be and you feel comfortable being. But the best way to forge good relationships with solicitors is have them rate your work.
Yeah, that actually sounds like the absolutely correct answer. If you provide good work and good service, I don't
Mm.
see why not. I don't see why it should be an issue for you to basically build up your bank of solicitors.
Mm.
In the same vein, we always hear about barristers and their interactions with their clerks. So as soon as you become a pupil barrister, then how important is it to begin building a very good relationship with your clerks?
Well, yeah, I mean, it is key. Don't get me wrong. I'm not the best person to ask because I'm still in my first six. Um, but so far as I understand, that they get the work in at the end of the day, um, and they give it to members of chambers. You you want to get along with them. You want them to know that they can come to you if they have something that they need to brief someone on, and you want to know that you're able to go to them if you have something that you have to return because it's interfering with something else you've got on, or it's clashing, and you have to return it ethically, um, and you want to be able to have a good, personable but professional working relationship with them, for you know not just to get along, but also so that you can ensure work coming in and going out is sort of as smooth as possible. We don't, as a first six pupil, you won't really have that much of a conversation with many clerks at all, or at least we've not. They will email you occasionally to tell you that they've got certain work for you, or to put stuff in your diary ready for your second six, for you to then be briefed on it when you go into your second six, and they will uh, ask you if you can do certain things around chambers, taking a note of conferences maybe, or things like that, and they'll coordinate you in that kind of way. But your interaction with them is actually quite limited until you get to your second six, and even then, it grows when you become a tenant.
Now, just before we conclude, would you say that you have much of a work-life balance?
I do, like, especially now. Like, the good thing about this tricky period that we're in is that um, I will work from home a lot, and so when I'm not in court or when I'm done at court, I'll come back to home and work. Especially as of late, I did go into chambers a bit in the first few months, but um, so yeah, I use that to advantage. I still there's a lot of things that I want to that I can't, but we're all in that boat. But I still exercise regularly. I go for um, several jogs a week and exercise at home. I read a lot. I spend time with um, uh, my partner, and I, as I'm sure everyone's doing, watch a lot of Netflix at the time being. So you do get time for life, and I work hard as well. So long as people understand in your chambers that you are a hard worker, I think they give you a lot more time to enjoy life as well. So yeah, my work life balance right now is good. Yeah.
Well, Brad, thanks a lot for sharing with us the realities of the first six and the second six, and also for giving us some hints, some tips for pupillage applications. I really do appreciate you taking the time out to come and have a chat with us and a chat with my viewers. So thanks for coming.
Thank you for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thanks a lot. And everyone else, I'll see you on the next video. Have a good one, guys.